Welcome back to this course on the World Domination Custom Cabinetry app. Today we'll be looking at the Projects page again. In an attempt to sound like a broken record, if this app were a wheel, this page is the hub. Almost everything else links to this page and can be done from here. In our last course we looked at views, field properties, and templates. Today we will open a project and look at the result of utilizing the template button. This is the template button here. When you hover over a project line in the grid table, you will see an open button appear to the right of the name field. This name field is always the primary field, so anytime you see this capital A and lowercase a and then something that you have entered here, that is the primary field. That field has to exist. It can be hidden, which doesn't make sense because then you couldn't open it. You have to have this primary field visible in table views to be able to open it. This allows you to open the project, revealing all of the data about this project. Templates are really powerful. When we create a new line here using this template button, we basically get a blank slate that does not have any data about previous jobs that allows us to fill in data about the current job. But for now, let's open an existing job rather than create a new job. So currently we're in what we call a card view, and anytime we float over these diagonal arrows in the top left corner, we have the option to open as a full page, and that is exactly what I do unless I need to navigate from one to the other. I always want to look at it, or always want to view this as a full page unless I want to move from one to the other. You see here we have 3 projects in the grid, and these carrots allow us to move from one to the other in this card view or window view, but I want to open it as a full page. This interface utilizes the linked database feature, or what I will refer to frequently as a portal, to display data that is designed with several missions in mind, with the overarching objective being manage expectations. That's also the overarching objective of this entire app. So first and foremost, this page or interface is to have a single source of truth for this project, a place where all the relevant data lives and is accessible or visible from any device, a PC, a tablet, or a smartphone. Second, we want to have a place we can invite our clients into to access this single source of truth. The third purpose or mission is only relevant if you have invited clients into this interface, which could be an owner, a builder, or a remodeler. But if you do choose to do that, this interface is intended to provide the decision maker with a sequence of events and to let them know when the ball is in their court. Most project delays are avoidable, and managing this process will minimize delays, earning you and your company a level of trust that cannot be achieved in any other way. You can't buy trust. Last but certainly not least is that this is a sort of dashboard for your project, and when we think about dashboards, typically gauges and warning lights come to mind. For those of you old enough to remember, dashboards in automobiles started out as a very simplistic gauge with only 1 or 2 things displayed. And then they got really complicated with gauges on everything from speed to engine RPMs, oil pressure, engine temperature, generator or alternator amp output, etc. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. With the project page open, we see the properties of the project, including any linked properties, but we also see the context-sensitive, job-specific data that we need to collect and or manage. Much of this dynamic layout is made up of portals or linked databases, which link into the rooms database, which we'll cover in the next video. But here are the things that we'll see here, and this page represents the sequence of events visually and can be completely changed if you need or want to edit, add, or subtract elements. So at the very top of the page we have all of the fields we saw earlier when we were in the grid view, plus a lot more. So if we scroll down a little bit, we do see here that we could even open up 10 more properties. So anytime we're on any one of these properties, you can choose what you want to see here and what you don't want to see here. We're displaying some of this data down below, but most of the data is coming from the rooms database. But anything you want to see here, if you click on, let's say, this payments field here, click on this field, you have the option here of hide property. And in the hide property, you have 3 options: always show, hide when empty, and always hide. Always show will show here at all times. Hide when empty will not show here unless you have entered data into it, which means you would have to have entered it somewhere else because it would be hidden and you wouldn't have the ability to type something into it. And then always hide means that it never shows here unless you open these 10 additional properties, and sometimes it's even 100 properties depending on the database that you're looking at. So in this case, if we click on that, we have 10 more properties that were kind of distributed throughout these. You also can choose where these are at by dragging and dropping them, and you see how the 6 dots turns into a hand. You can drag and drop them. So if you want to reorder these, you can do that as well. Most of the time I like to keep this rolled up into kind of a compact critical fields and then display the other fields in other areas or in other ways. Then this next section is called the table of contents. Table of contents is a feature that you can add, but what you're seeing here are simply the headers below. So this first item, job information, is just the table of content for the job information. And if I were to click on job information, it would take me to it. Now you see that all it did here, because we're already at it, it just highlighted it. But if I click on this last one, it will take me all the way to the bottom of the page and highlight the images. One little trick that's not self-evident is that if you want to return to the top of the page, instead of having to come here and grab this bar and drag it up or use your mouse wheel to roll up, if you just click on this breadcrumb trail at the last item, the item where you're at, we're on a page called Radius Condo 17B, it will take you back to the top of the page. So that's kind of your navigation. This brings you back to the top of the page. Table of contents will take you right to where you want to be. And we're just going to start at the top here and work our way down. So this job information includes a couple things: project elicitations and project location. And then we go into our step-by-step sequence of events. So this project elicitation is where we list things that we need to proceed. You see that here all in caps lock. We're really trying to, we have a flashing arrow saying, look here. So if we invited a client into them, every time they come in, the very first thing they come to as they scroll down will be this list of things we need from them. So I'm going to jump over into a real job for one of our clients that is using the software, and we'll slide down to his elicitations, and you see here we have several questions. This is one of the few places that we don't use our checkbox to hide things. We want to continue to see the items as they answer them and know when we requested this information and when we got the answer to that information. So we don't hide it just because we've checked it. We were just checking it saying we did get an answer, and this is the date we got an answer. And you can add new items here. So here we just have a series of questions for the builder himself. Then we have a field that is a select field that are the most common questions, but of course you can type a new question here and it'll give you the opportunity to add that. And then you do want to take the time to kind of sort that into an order that makes sense to you. If it's something that's very infrequent, slide it to the bottom. If it's something that's very frequent, slide it to the top. You may even want to alphabetize these, however you want to sort them, but you can add new items there. And then we always want to put the date we asked so that we can kind of have this breadcrumb trail of, we've been asking for 4 weeks for this information, and your job has had to be pushed back each week that you didn't give us an answer. And we kind of have proof of that. Then the priority, what's the implication of this? So is this a high, medium, or low priority? When we click on any one of these, we have these options and you could add more. And then we have the effect. What's the effect on the delivery date? So in this case, is this going to affect the delivery date? No, possibly, or yes. And so we've answered that for each one of these. And then we want to link it to the project. Now if we add a new item here, because we are in a project, it will automatically fill that field in for us. We won't have to enter that. And then we just type out kind of a long description of what it is we're asking, or clarify, add the context, make sure they understand what we're asking. So this is always available if we invite our clients in. If it's not, then it's kind of our marching orders each Friday. We want to come to each one of our clients that have an active job and start either via email or phone calls, however we want to reach out to them and get answers to these questions. And then the next piece is the project location, and this is just simply going to Google, typing in the address, and then once you do, pasting that address in. This will have a field here that when you click on it, it'll give you the opportunity to paste that address in. So I'm going to come into Google just to illustrate how this works, and I'm going to paste in the address. And then I want to choose Google Maps. And you can do that either here, choosing Maps, or click on the map. I'm just going to go ahead and choose Google Maps. And so at this point, Google Maps is identifying this address right here. And so what I want to copy and paste is this URL up here. That's what's going to make that function. So when I come back to this map, if I wanted to come to this, then there will be a field here, and I will show you real quick what that looks like. So I'm going to add a new field real quick. And you see, as I start typing the word Google, you should have 2 options here, Google Drive or Google Maps. And so this field embed a Google map will be here when you come to a new project, and all you have to do is click on this bar and then you'll get this box. And if I paste in that address that we did, we'll just get a duplicate of what we have here. So that's how that works. Then if I wanted to delete that, click on the 6 bars to the left and delete it. So now let's just kind of walk through these step by steps. I'm going to jump back to our project because we've kind of changed some of the wording and the coloring and all of that, and that was an older project. So this step 1, and we've used this basketball metaphor, kind of the ball is in your court. So a red heading is telling the customer ball is in your court. The red is customer, blue is us. The basketball, because it's played on a court, ball is in your court is the metaphor we're trying to use. So step 1, you need to provide us with job information, and that might be blueprints, drawings, sketches, specifications, whatever. We're going to put those things they provide us with inside of this toggle box we call this. This is actually a toggle header, and we can stick anything we want in here, whether it's an image, it's a picture, anything. We can just drag and drop it. We also have a couple questions for them that we like to ask very early on. What's the size of the crown mold, and what's the size of the trim or casing? And then we have job notes. In job notes, we basically put in here these generic rooms to start with in toggles that allow you to come in here and add images or whatever you want, or text to these items to be specific to this job. And so if I had a kitchen, I would come in here and change this name, and when I do, it'll also change the color. And so that tells me these red rooms are just generic rooms that I can use if I want. If you only have a kitchen, you certainly have the option to drag across these and just go ahead and delete all of them. Just hit the delete key, or get on the 6 dots for the first one and say delete and get rid of all of them. But if you have more rooms, you just rename them. But this is just extra rooms that you can use if you need them, and delete them if you want, or just leave them there. And because they're red, anything that's white we know is active for this job, anything's not. And then inside of this toggle we would add notes and images or whatever we want specific to the kitchen. So when you're meeting with clients, this is where you want to keep those notes. And you can do that on your phone, you can do that on a tablet, you can do that at a computer, whatever's most convenient. If you're meeting in the field, obviously a phone or a tablet would be better. Then this step 2, now the ball is in our court. The heading is blue, so that means the ball is in our court. We provide a ballpark estimate and a proposed delivery date. Now, these two things might happen at the same time. They might come to your showroom with this information, and from what they've provided you, if you can come up with a cabinet quantity, this is all we need for this ballpark estimate to work. Now, I say it's all we need. It's all we need from them for this to work. From you, we're going to need to determine what this low rate, this average rate, and this high rate is, and that's basically looking at what you did last year, total sales divided by the number of cabinets that you manufactured. We're going to divide by cabinetry, but it's going to include everything that you sold for that job. And so it's actually not a cost per cabinet, but a cost for the entire job divided by cabinet quantity. So it's an accurate prediction based on your lowest cost job. And typically what we do at this low cost and high cost is we find the lowest cost job, throw that one out, and come up one step and choose that one as our low rate. And the same thing for the high rate, because usually there's one weird job that just nothing would ever be that. We want it to be something that really could happen. If they picked white melamine and decorative laminate veneer doors and inexpensive drawer types, not a lot of moldings, not a lot of accessories. So that's something that really can happen. And then this is every job you did last year divided by the number of cabinets you provided last year. So it's a real accurate number. And then this high rate is your most expensive or the next one down from that divided by the number of cabinets that were provided. And so in reality, we're able to have a meeting with someone, gather this one number from them, either from blueprints, sketches, drawings, images, pictures of their existing kitchen, whatever, and say, okay, you're going to have 14 cabinets in your kitchen. And so your kitchen, if you choose our least expensive options, would cost you $674 per cabinet. And you could hide this one. If you don't want to show these rates, most people do hide these. I want to show them for this video, but most people hide these rates and just show the number. So for this kitchen, the best case scenario, picking our least expensive options would be $9,436. If you pick what most people pick, then you would spend $13,832. And if you pick what the people that pick the most expensive things we offer and all of the options and all of the high-end finishing and things like that, you will spend $21,112. You could obviously spend more. You could be the person that spent more than anybody else, but this is a very valid range. Several things happen there. If you want to really think through that process of why we do this, there is a blog series on this on my website at bobobuckley.com. Go there and read that, and I really explain well why we do this. But it does serve several purposes. It pre-qualifies the customer. Can you afford my cabinets or not? Number one. And then number two, it gives them 3 estimates. Some people are satisfied once they get 3 estimates. They don't have to be 3 estimates from 3 people, 3 different cabinet companies. Some people are satisfied to say, I got my 3 estimates. Best case is going to be this, worst case is that. And if I do what most people do, it's going to be this, and I can get anywhere in between here. So that's kind of answering that first question, can you afford my cabinets? And then also, we're going to talk about when you can provide them. So since this project doesn't have but 4 jobs in it, I'm going to jump back to our sample company and jump down to this same location here. So here's our ballpark estimate, and here's our delivery schedule, and this is like a live delivery schedule. So here's where we are today, and here's where he's starting to install cabinetry. This particular client installs kind of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if need be. You won't see many of that, but usually kind of a Thursday, Friday, kind of build them, assemble them, deliver them, and then install them here. And this is representing one day all the way through here. This is the 7th right here, and then this is the 8th and the 9th. And so he's going to install these rooms of cabinetry on these 2 days, or actually possibly having to go back on a 3rd day because of the quantities. But if we start looking through here and we know how many cabinets we can do or install per day or per week, we can see here, because we're showing you that for each one of these rooms, we're illustrating the job name, we have the project status, what status is this job at, what is the room name, what is the room status, where's it at in our system, and then the estimated cabinet quantity and the actual cabinet quantity. We can almost ignore that estimated cabinet quantity, but we keep it there so early on we still have something to tell us about how many cabinets are. As we get further down, we won't know what the actual cabinet quantity is, so that estimated cabinet quantity is valid. And then we have a room price, so you know about how many cabinets and how many dollars you can install each day. And so what we're looking for is a blank space of where we could put some cabinets for this client. And so we're having to come pretty far down here. So right now we're on today, and we may have to skip forward a little bit. So now we're into the next month, and we still don't have any gaps. Go forward another month. Right now we're in August, and you can see he's finally got some blank spaces here. So here's the last thing he's installing, so he can put somebody else's job here. So let's just say that we tell the client the first opportunity we have to install your cabinets would be the 8th or 9th of September. He can also kind of work his way back and say, okay, on this week I've got 24 cabinets to install. I know I can't install more cabinets than that. And he can start looking at these quantities and say, is there anywhere in here I can plug this in? And if he can't, he can't. But you can work your way back up through this list. You also will see here that we're in August here, that he's blocked this whole week off for IWF. So you can use this calendar, also block off your personal things that are happening in your life, all those type things you can block off here using this calendar. So let's go back to our projects page here. And so this top area here is about pre-qualifying the client. Once we pre-qualify them, they can afford our cabinetry. Doesn't mean they'll do business with us, but they can afford them, and that they can wait until we can do it. Then we would move to step 3A. And in step 3A, the ball is in their court. So really these two things happen all at once. We're trying to determine whether they can afford it, and then if they can, then we want to go ahead and get the selections if we can. We may have to schedule another meeting, and we say here, the meeting at our facility to make these selections is required. We want them to see real things, not things on the internet or our website or whatever. So we want them to come to the showroom and make these selections. All of this information is another thing where this is a good companion for a custom cabinet estimator. This is all the information we would need to put into our estimating software. But our estimating software is not something we would want to have on a screen in our showroom while we're collecting these answers from our customers. In the past, we used a paper form, and we would write down what they told us, what they wanted to use for the interior, the exterior, the door profiles, all of those things, door box type and all of that. Now we use this, and we can do this on our phone standing in the showroom, or we can do it with a tablet standing in the showroom. So step 2, step 3A, and step 3B are possible to be one meeting, but it's also possible that it may take 2 meetings to do this. So we want to pre-qualify them, and then we want to get their selections once we've pre-qualified them, and then we want to gather some additional information. And this is one you want to start pressing on early and often. And so we need that appliance specification list. Now this is another database. We're actually looking at the rooms database. You can see here we're looking at the rooms database. Here we're looking at the rooms database. But here we're looking at fields about their selection. Here we're looking at fields about their appliances. And so For the kitchen for this project, we have some appliances, a microwave oven, a refrigerator, a range top, and a dishwasher. For these other rooms, for this particular project, we don't have any appliances, and that's fine. That would be typical. Now, we might have a washer and dryer. Sometimes they just say leave a 60-inch space, whatever. But if we have them, then we would have them here. And we do put the appliances into a database, and that's intentional. We find that to be a value. So I'm going to click on this area. If the appliance that I need is in here, if I started typing in letters and I started saying, oh, well, there's what I'm looking for right there. I'm looking for a model number, and that's it. Then I can just pick that and it will add it to this list of items that we already have. If it doesn't show up, then the option will come up if I type in that. It's not in my list, and then I can add it to my list. And we'll do that in a later video, but that's how that works. So right now, what is in this project, what's linked, the appliances that are linked are these 4, and then we have a whole database full of ones that are not. And so let's just look at one of these to see what is actually in this database. I'm not going to open this in anything but a card view because I want to be able to go right back to where I was. If I actually open it as a page, then it's going to take me to that database, and I'll have to navigate back to this project. So I don't want to do that. So right here we have a GE microwave oven. This is the model number, which is the primary field, and it is linked to multiple jobs. We've used it in multiple jobs. Here's the specification. So if I want to open these specifications, I simply click on it once to get to them, and a second time, and it opens in a new tab. I still have my page here, but inside of a new tab, I have my appliance specifications where I can actually find out what the opening height and width and all that is. If you use appliance fairly frequently, this is nice. You're just bringing it up rather than doing all the normal work you have to do to go find it, get all the specs and all that. So this actually has the specifications. It has a link to a website where you can get more information about this. But I also have fields here, and we can have as many of these as we want that identify the opening width for this particular unit, the opening width, the opening height, and the opening depth. And so that's handy information rather than even looking at the specifications. I kind of have that key information for this one. If I've never used it, I'm still going to open these specifications and look at them and make sure I understand overlays and all those things. But if I've used it before, you can even make notes down here above or below your image. You don't have to put an image in, but I choose to put an image in. But you could even come down here and add notes about this appliance that, hey, when we used this, we had to shim, or we had to do this, or we had to do that, or on this dishwasher panel, we had to shift it up 15 millimeters or down 15 millimeters. So a lot of advantages to using a database for appliances rather than just pulling the PDFs and throwing them in here. You could do that as well. You could just slide PDFs in under this. We also have this design questionnaire. This is totally up to you if you want to set something up like this. This is done using a program called Tally. You can see here, made with Tally. But some things you might want to ask your customer, and then you would get an email with the answers to these questions. What's the job name? Tell us who you are. They would come in here and fill this out. When was your house built? How long do you intend to live in this house? How old is the current kitchen? What do you love most about your kitchen, or dislike most about your kitchen? And what do you love most about your kitchen? Just whatever you wanted. You could have this form in here for them to fill out any information you wanted about their project, and they fill that out. You would get an email with those answers. Then the ball's back in our court. Because we've gotten all this information from them, we're going to provide them with a formal estimate. Right now, we just simply tag that estimate here. This particular project was for a builder that this is actually a real project I did years ago. So we didn't provide an estimate. He didn't want one. He didn't care for one. I'm pretty sure we didn't have one. Yep, in either case, we just didn't put one in here. Most of them would have an estimate in there in a PDF format of something that came out of Custom Cabinet Estimator. Again, this is where we would store what we made in Custom Cabinet Estimator, so a companion to Custom Cabinet Estimator. Then we have step 5, balls back in their court. The customer needs to provide a signed copy of this estimate and our design fee. So here is where we would plug that if we got that. If we didn't send them an estimate, obviously we wouldn't get that back. Then we go out and field measure the project, and we actually use an app to field measure the project, and I don't think these jobs have that. So let's jump back into our project here, and so we either tuck them in here per room. So in this case, here's the kitchen field measure. This is one we did with the Bosch digital measuring device and using the app built in. It's pretty good for this wall view and overhead view, but it's not really good for really getting all the information about the rooms. We're using the Measures app more often than not, and so maybe this whole job was measured this way. Let's see. I know we've double checked it, so we'll see the other one. I like to keep things in these toggle blocks so that I can close them up and get them out of the way. Open this one, look at it, and then close it. This is the kind of information we're trying to get from them. What's the center from this side to the center of the plumbing, and what's the distance to this plumbing pipe, and what's the center of that, and what's the full wall length. Now in this case he's not showing the full wall length here because he's showing the full wall length there. But you would store whatever you do, even if it's manual papers you scan in. You want whatever you do to be in each of these rooms. You want to have the field measurements represented inside of these toggle blocks. So this is the kitchen. So you'd have each room listed with those so that you can design the job. So we get our field measurements, however we do that. We also have some more questions that the guy that's out there field measuring is going to see, because this is where he's going to put these pictures as he goes. Where's the electrical panel? We want to know that. If something goes wrong, if we run a screw into the power, we want to be able to turn the power off if we need to. And an installer doesn't need to go looking for the electrical panel when there's a problem. He wants to know where it is. Same thing with the water shutoff. You run a screw into a water pipe. We want to know where to turn the water off. So we want to get that information when we first visit the house. What's the largest entry door? Make sure that we can get our cabinets in the house assembled, not unassembled. And then what is our crown mold height and what is our casing width for windows and doors? And then we have the design, and we would add our designs here. So we do have a design here. We can open that up. Again, it's just a PDF, but it came from our design software. You can see here, this is our 1-3D, a floor plan. This is straight out of KCD, but this is a typical set of drawings. And so from this job, we're seeing those drawings. I'm going to jump back to our job again so we can kind of, don't need that extra data here to walk through the rest of these. And then number 7, we're going to design your cabinetry, and then we would put the designs in here. And if there's different revisions, if we have a third revision, it's this simple. Click on the 6 dots, duplicate that, rename this to 3, and then add revision 3 in here. And these blocks are just here to allow you to not have to go search for that block, but we'll learn in the Notion databases how to add things like an embedded file or an image. Typically I prefer images to embeds, and we'll talk about that in the Notion courses. On step 8, you need to review our design, talking to the customer again, typically done at our facility. So there's a design meeting that needs to be done. So any notes that happen room specific, we would change this to kitchen and say, okay, here's what they want to change about the kitchen, this is what they want to change about the laundry room, the master bath, and so on and so on. And then step 9, provide you with a proposal. So here we would put our proposals from our custom cabinet estimator into these toggle blocks. And again, if we have revisions, we would always knowing that revision 2 supersedes revision 1, revision 3 supersedes revision 2. That's true in drawings, that's true in estimates, that's true in proposals. The highest number is always the valid one. But we want the breadcrumb trail of everyone we provided. And then step 10, ball's back in their court. They need to provide us with a signed copy of the proposal we provided them with, and we would put that signed copy here as an image. Typically we don't put the whole thing in there, we just take a picture of the last page with our iPhone and stick that in there. We might have that in this one. Let's see. Yeah, so we have a signed proposal. So it's just literally a snapshot of that page with the owner signature. Gives you an idea of what we're looking for there. Documenting single source of truth, managing expectation. And then here, this is a pretty sophisticated portion of it here if you want to use this. I consider this a sales tool. A lot of people just consider this kind of documentation of the process. So these are each one galleries. It's a database. When you add a picture here. Okay, I've jumped into another project just so I can illustrate this a little better, one that actually has some pictures in it. So in this before or job site conditions, in this case we actually used our field measurements as our before, because these are pictures of this kitchen before. They just happen to have field measurements on them, and this is the other app we use, the Measures app. And you type all of this stuff, measure it with a digital field measuring tool, and then you type these dimensions in. And you can add notes. You can see here we've added notes to this. And if you need to see this in a larger format, again, you would want to open this as a page, and you can see this as big if you want to make it full width. It's about as big as you can stand. And once you've stretched it out, you can also stretch it back if you want it to be smaller, however big you think is necessary. So that's how this image gallery works. All these images are in a database, and these images are associated just to this project using a filter. So there's hundreds of images in there, but these images are showing because this filter says, if we look at it, there's 2 rules. And it says to only show images for jobs that the status is before job site. So that's saying, we may take 50 images of this job, but in this portal I only want to see the ones that are tagged before job site. And then from here on down, or the second piece of it is, and that it's for this project. I think it's valid to go ahead and add pictures, like just a couple pictures when you start machining the job, and invite the client back to this and say, hey, we started machining your job today. And invite them around lunchtime. They might show these pictures on their phone to a friend who also may build a house or be building a house or know somebody building a house. And then do it again when you start assembly, and then do it again when you start finish, and then do it again when you start hardwaring the job. And then here's some pictures that we took at installation. This is the time that I would reach out to the customer multiple times through the day, because I would take a picture of the job before we put anything in, and then I would take some more pictures after we started doing like the wall cabinets and then base cabinet. And then as we just proceed through the day, those pictures get more and more elaborate with all the things we've installed through the day or days. And then when you go back and photograph for your social media and stuff, we want them to live here so they're easy to find for anybody in the future or when they get ready to post your social media stuff. So the after or complete, when you're actually done and the people are living in the house and it's kind of decorated, we want those to live here as well. Then the last section on this thing, and I'm going to go back to our parent project, we'll close this up. The last item is accessory items and imported assets. So anything that you would have brought in from like the Measures app would come in down here. If you import something, it's going to come at the bottom of this page. If I bring in those field measurements, I'm going to slide them up by grabbing the 6 dots and pull them up into that field measurement area. But anything that the customer gives you that you import is going to end up down here at the bottom, and we just like for this to be identified as these are things that we've brought in for one reason or another. And you can, if you want to, slide them inside the toggle so they don't just line up down here, however you want to deal with that. So let's kind of sum this up in that this is a page that could be considered a dashboard, and we find that dashboards in our life are extremely useful. We'll see some more dashboards when we look at the team area, where we can peek into portals that are specific to certain people's job functions and things like that. But dashboards like this can be extremely useful. At least they can be useful until they are not useful. Until they display so much information it is impossible to monitor, and they hurt more than they help. If you are tempted to keep adding more and more features, be careful. Make sure you don't create the inevitable outcome of not being able to see the forest for the trees. This is the dilemma of ERP and MRP software systems. They're so complicated that you just can't do it. You're spending more time on the data than you are on the project itself. And we don't want to do that. We just want this visibility. We just want this single source of truth. This page of the World Domination Custom Cabinetry app is completely customizable. You can make it into anything you want it to be, but keep in mind that the objective of a dashboard is to provide visibility. And too much visibility is more of a distraction than a benefit. So let's make sure we don't add things just to be adding things, that we only add the views that allow us to see the forest in spite of the trees. Let's not overcomplicate this. This covers everything I wanted to touch on in this second tutorial on projects. Up next, we'll look at rooms. Thanks for watching.